Wrapping up our farm system previews, we have the Baltimore Orioles, who had 2022's number one prospect in Adley Rutschman, 2023's number one prospect in Gunnar Henderson, 2024's number one prospect in Jackson Holliday, and probably 2025's number one prospect in catcher Samuel Basallo. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On MLB Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on in to Locked On MLB Prospects, your home for all things minor league baseball. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster, and thank you for making this your first listen every single day. We're proudly part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and today's episode is made possible by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Okay, so wrapping up our farm system previews for 2024 with the Baltimore Orioles. 101-61 last year, second best record in all of baseball, and an organization that has a lot of things going right for them, right? New ownership coming, which is great. They immediately go out and they trade for Corbin Burnes to give them the frontline starter that I was beating them up over not acquiring at the deadline last year. And to go along with all of this, you had a really great year last year with a lot of youngsters coming up, and you've got some more who should be able to help you this year. I mentioned it in the open, but catcher Adley Rutschman was the number one prospect in baseball. Gunnar Henderson was the number one prospect in baseball. Jackson Holliday is the new number one prospect in baseball. It is virtually an unprecedented run of success for this farm system. So we all know who Jackson Holliday is, but let me give you some of the metrics and some of the numbers behind what he was able to do. So for the number one overall pick in 22, last year started off in single A and ended the year in triple A. So he hits Delmarva, he hits Aberdeen, he hits Bowie, he finishes up in Norfolk. It's absolutely absurd. Just under 600 plate appearances, like 581. Jackson Holliday bats .323, .442, .499. Literally one double away from a .345 slash line. 12 homers, 51 extra base hits, 101 walks to 118 strikeouts, and 24 of 33 on stolen bases. And I've talked about this on the show before. We use 5-tool prospect a lot. Jackson Holliday has the potential to be a 5-tool prospect. I think right now, the arm isn't quite where it needs to be a plus arm. The power isn't quite where it needs to be a plus arm. Now, the hit tool is probably a 70 grade, right? His zone contact last year was 82%, which normally, when we talk about a 70 grade hit tool, you're looking for that. You're thinking that's going to be closer to the 90s. But you have to remember, one, it is the age adjustment, right? Like he did all of this at the age of 19 last year. So, like, it stands to reason that's going to improve as he gets a little bit more acclimated to professional baseball. But then also the underlying stuff around it, chase rate was under 20%, like just really promising. And when you do the age to level adjustments, it comes out to a 70 grade hit tool. The power was better last year. He did increase the power numbers from his post-draft sample in 22 to last year. So the average exit velocity for Jackson Holliday was 91 miles an hour. The 90th percentile was 102.3. And you'll remember that 103 and change is MLB average. So he's right there below MLB average. And when you adjust that for the fact that he was at age 19, that ends up being a future probably above average power ceiling. And the question is, where can that necessarily go? Speed, he's a plus runner. The arm, I think, is, and I mentioned this earlier, the arm is average. And the defense, I think, depends based on where he's playing. I think that in time, he could be a plus defender at shortstop. I've said this on the show before, and I caught some flack for it, actually. I think that if you put him in at second base right now, he would be a plus defender at second base right now. and could be a 70 grade second baseman with some time in the major leagues. They used him a lot of different places last year. Oh, correction, not a lot. They used him at short and second both. So 2 games at third, 4 games at DH, but 98 at short and 20 at second. He is a non-roster invitee to spring training, and I think that if you wanted Jackson Holliday to debut out of spring training, your best case scenario for that is to put Jackson Holliday at second base, let Gunnar Henderson continue to play third while he is physically able to, simply just acknowledging that Gunnar Henderson is a little bit of a bigger guy, and that typically players with that frame end up needing to move to third base. You have options, right? Jordan Westberg can play a couple different places. You have options however you want to configure this infield, right? But it feels like your best bet for Jackson Holliday to be able to hit the ground running in the major leagues on opening day, if that's what you want to do, is to have him at second base so that he can focus on acclimating to the majors, and then you can start kicking him over to shortstop as you run out of contractual control of guys like Jorge Mateo, and then also as he's more acclimated to the pros, the expectations, the demands, the grind, all of that. Now, part of the question about where you play Jackson Holliday also is contingent on Coby Mayo and where he plays. So 4th rounder in 2020 out of high school, ridiculous power numbers, and he's gotten better as a hitter. Defensively, he's played a lot of third base, 102 games there. He played 28 at first and 12 at DH last year. And I think that defensively, at best, he's going to be average. The arm is massive. It's like a 70 grade arm. It's a cannon over there. But I think just at best, you're going to see him get to average defensively at third base. And so, do you decide to play Coby Mayo at third, Gunnar Henderson at short, Jackson Holliday at second? Or do you move Coby Mayo to first base? Do you play Gunnar Henderson at third and Jackson Holliday at short? From an offensive perspective, again, Coby Mayo has significantly gotten better. He's always had amazing power, right? And last year, 90th percentile exit velo of 107. It's legitimately, if not 65, 70 grade power, somewhere around there. But contact-wise, he got better, 74% overall, 83% in the zone. And if you look year over year, all of the numbers, your strikeout rate, your walk rate, your chase, all of that stuff improved. He dropped his strikeout rate like 10% year over year. It's still 25%, but it's a lot better than it was. He raised his walk rate from just under 9% to around 15%, like 6.5% or so. And his chase rate came down from 27% to 23%. So he's getting better. And I think the ceiling of the hit tool is somewhere between a 50 and a 55. Whereas when you were going into 23, the question was, could he ever get to average? And he's probably going to end up being a 40 or 45 hit tool. So defensively, like I said, he's fine. The speed's not necessarily great. I've seen a lot of conversation about, do they try him in the outfield? You have so many outfielders in the system. Your best bet is for Coby Mayo to stick at third base. And we've seen guys be able to surprise us with defense at third base. Josh Young of the Rangers is a guy who we thought was going to be at best French to average defensively, and he got better to the point of, I believe there was discussion about him being snubbed for Gold Glove at third base. So Coby Mayo could do it, and I think it's in the best interest short term of the team if Coby Mayo is able to play third, so that, again, you can ease Jackson Holliday into the majors. And then when Jackson Holliday, playing second, is ready to go, ready to play shortstop, move him over to short, move Gunnar Henderson to third, and move Coby Mayo to first. Either way, you've got plenty of options. You've got plenty of guys who can play a lot of these different positions. In just a minute, we'll talk about some of your options at first base, some of your outfield, your infield. We'll do all that next, right here on Locked On MLB Prospects. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. If you are watching this on Saturday when we drop it, 1, thank you for being an everydayer. 2, the Super Bowl is tomorrow, and happy Super Bowl Eve to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Absolutely love this day. Honestly, it should be a national holiday the next day, or you should play this game on Saturday, if it's up to me. But either way, Super Bowl Sunday is tons of fun. It's an excuse to have all kind of great food. I've been talking about that all week. We're doing wings, both garlic butter and lemon pepper wet. No other wings, don't want to hear an argument in there. We're doing nachos, we're doing dips, all kind of fun stuff. But then also, you get to watch the commercials and the trailers, and you get to play some fun prop bets. So FanDuel has tons of ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2 or 3. You can bet on the winner of the game. They've got bets on who's going to score a touchdown first, or which players will score a touchdown, how many points are going to be scored. If you like receivers or running backs or kickers, whatever, you can do specific bets on just those things. My official prediction, as of time of recording, San Francisco's a 2.5-point favorite over the Kansas City Chiefs, and my official prediction is that the San Francisco 49ers not only win, but cover the 2.5 versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm probably going to regret this, but that's what I'm going with. So, new customers, join today, and you will get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn, and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back to Locked On MLB Prospects. Before we get to the players you may see in 2024, quick reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and now also Amazon Fire TV. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7 with the top sports stories of the day using the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows like this one that cover every single league. Find the Locked On Sports Today channel now on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV, and soon to come on Roku TV devices. Okay, so looking at players you may see in 2024, and unlike what we typically do on these shows, I'm going to talk about a couple guys that you did see in 23 because they came up, didn't necessarily have great debuts, but they came up, and it's outfielders Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad. So Kjerstad was a first rounder out of Arkansas in 2020. Cowser was a first rounder out of Sam Houston State in 21. So Kjerstad first. He lost his entire 2021 season to myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle. There was a little bit of discussion about would he be able to play baseball again. Missed the whole year, came back, rocketed through the minors, went to the Arizona Fall League, had a good year last year, made his debut. 122 games last year for Heston Kjerstad. 303, 376, 528. 21 homers, 58 extra base hits, 42 walks to 100 strikeouts, and 5 of 9 on stolen bases. He's got some interesting stuff under the hood. The power's good, 90 miles an hour average exit velocity. His 90th percentile is 106. But there's a big skew in his contact numbers. His overall contact rate is only 75%. But in the zone, 88% contact. And the reason for that is probably more so than any other person in this system who's like a legit prospect. Heston Kjerstad will chase out of the zone to try to get some power and get a good swing on a ball. And so, little bit of work to do there. And when he came up in 13 games, he went 7-30 with 2 homers, but he also struck out 10 times. And you could see the chase was a little bit of a thing there. And so definitely some stuff to work on. He has different flexibility than a lot of these other guys in this system. He is a corner outfielder and first base option. And last year, in fact, 49 games at right, 38 at first, 20 at DH, and 16 in left field. Most of his time in MLB was a DH because it's hard to roll a guy in there when you have a winning Major League roster and find a spot for him. But I think that when you watch what Heston Kjerstad does, the arm is above average, the speed's just below average, but defensively he's got some more work to do. And again, versatility for corner outfield and first base, he's not really great at any of them. And so I think if you want to be able to add some defensive value into what Heston Kjerstad does, you're going to need to see him put a little bit more work into his picks at first base, a little bit more work into his reads, routes, reactions in the outfield. Some of this is to be expected when he's playing, in essence, 3 different positions at one time. He's a jack of all trades, master of none. But I think there's potential here for Heston Kjerstad to give you good power and give you at least neutral defensive ability with some versatility to cover multiple positions. Colton Cowser's another guy that can give you versatility. The Sam Houston State first rounder in 21. 87 games in AAA and then 26 games in the bigs. And looked like a different player at the 2 levels. So in AAA, Colton Cowser batted .300, .417, .520. 17 homers and 36 extra base hits. 64 walks to 107 strikeouts and 9 of 12 on stolen bases. Played mostly center field, 53 games in center, 12 each in left and right. In the majors, in the 26 games, he batted .115, struck out 22 times, and his 2 extra base hits he had were both doubles, playing more right and left than center. And the thing is, the power is really good for Colton Cowser. 105 was his 90th percentile exit velocity. Again, 103 and change is average, so he's above average there. And the average exit velocity was like 91. He does still struggle with lefties. He does still struggle with good spin, so you can still get him there. And when he came up, he did not look like the same player. He was very timid, very hesitant, and wasn't playing with, I'm not going to say the confidence, but wasn't comfortable in his major league call-up. And so I think there's a little bit of offensive refinement you can do. I also think there is some of that confidence that he, in that comfort that he needs to get to fully realize his potential. The arm is above average. The speed's above average. He's useful for all 3 outfield spots. He can be valuable on this major league roster. He just has to be comfortable at the major league level. And then a few other guys you could see this year. Connor Norby's an interesting guy. 2nd rounder in 21 out of Eastern Carolina. 138 games, all in AAA last year. 290, 359, 483. 21 homers and 64 extra base hits. Struck out 137 times and was 10-14 on stolen bases. Gives you some versatility. 105 games at second, played some left, played some right, a little bit of time at shortstop. The arm isn't great, but he can give you infield, outfield versatility. Good contact ability, zone contact of 85%. His exit velocities were below average when you round them up. It's 102 for a 90th percentile, 87 for an average. And really, that comes down to his swing. Like, it's really a line drive geared swing. And I think the potential to get to average power in games is there. But Connor Norby feels like a guy for you that is going to be able to run high batting averages, but he still has some swing and miss in there, and when he's trying to hit for power, he has swing and miss. So minding the approach, he's going to be a good utility option. Just given how many infielders you have here, he's going to be a good utility option who can give you decent contact, decent on base, decent stolen base, decent defense. Not amazing at anything, but just decent all across the board. And that's a valuable piece to have at the major league level. You have guys who can do that now on the roster, but for financial reasons, Connor Norby can come in and do it probably for cheaper. So keep an eye on him. And then 2 pitchers, Cade Povich and Chase McDermott, both of them in the 2021 draft. Povich was the 3rd round out of Nebraska. McDermott was the 4th round out of Ball State. Both of them are non-roster invitees to spring training this year. Povich had 28 starts between AA and AAA, went 8-10 with an ERA just over 5, but struck out 12.2 batters per 9 innings through 126 innings, so the workload was there. 4.7 walks per 9 innings. Ton of pitches, right? Fastball sits low 90s, can touch 95. Cutters in the upper 80s. He's got a curveball in the high 70s, a changeup, a sweeper. The issue for Cade Povich is that command comes and goes, right? You need him to more consistently be around the zone to bring down the ERA, to bring down the walks, and to make you into a back end of the rotation, reliable option there in Baltimore as soon as this year. We'll just see what he does there. And then Chase McDermott has, I'd argue, some better stuff and had better results, but had some injury questions because he ended the year with a back injury. 26 appearances between AA and AAA, 8-8 with a 3.10 ERA in 119 innings. 152 strikeouts, 11.5 per nine, 268 walks, 5.1 per nine, and only 9 home runs allowed. Fastball sits mid-90s. He can touch 97 with it. He's got a sweeper, a curveball, a cutter, and added a splitter. And so it's a lot of pitches. It's just the locations on them aren't always where they need to be, and then the sequencing isn't really there. He doesn't always know when to use which pitch and where to throw it in the zone. So, 1, Adley Rutschman can help with that. 2, this is something that can come with time. So I feel confident that both of these guys are going to be able to contribute. I maybe feel better about McDermott because McDermott, I feel like his issues are mostly sequencing and deciding where to throw these pitches, whereas Povich sometimes loses the ability to know where it's going. But either way, 2 high-ceiling guys I think can both be in the rotation for you as soon as this year if you need them. Let's just see what happens in spring training. In just a minute, let's talk about some lower-level prospects to watch, including why Samuel Basallo was so impressive at age 18. We'll do that next, right here on Locked on MLB Prospects. Final segment of Locked on MLB Prospects here on Saturday. And thank you to all the Baltimore fans who are here. Reminder, Locked On Sports Today is now available on YouTube and Amazon Fire TV. It's a national sports 24/7 streaming channel. We've covered all the top sports stories of the day. We've got the local experts of Locked On for whatever organization, whatever team has a great story going on, plus national shows like this one that just cover the leagues as a whole. So, Locked On Sports Today, it's on YouTube, Amazon Fire TV. Go find it. Go watch it. If you see us on there, take a picture, tweet it to us. It's awesome. Okay, Samuel Basallo. Let's talk about why he's going to be the number 1 prospect next year. So 114 games between single A, high A, and double A. Most of those were in single A, but still. 313, 402, 551 was the slash line for Samuel Basallo. 20 home runs, 53 extra base hits, 61 walks to 94 strikeouts, and 12 of 17 on stolen bases. So, at the age of 18, 90th percentile exit velo of 106. The kid can absolutely freaking mash. Like, 18 years old, hitting 106 on his 90th percentile is amazing, right? And so, you combine that with the fact that his contact percentage is already in the 70s, and that the defense, he's got to refine the actual defense, the blocking, the receiving, the game calling, all of that stuff needs a little bit of work. I think he can get to average, which you don't have to have a superstar defensive catcher in Baltimore when you have Adley Rutschman. And they played him some at first base, 28 games at first. So he can be a guy, he can be your backup catcher, he can play first base, he can DH. You've got options for him. But the one thing that is really nice is the arm is cannon. 70 grade arm. The accuracy is pretty good. He caught like over 30% of base stealers last year in the minors, despite, again, being 18 years old. And so the tools are there to get to at least average defense. So you've got a catcher that can mash with great power and looks like it could legitimately end up being 70 grade power when it's all said and done. The arm is really good. The hit tool looks like it's going to be average to above average. You're in a situation where there's not much between you and being the number 1 prospect in baseball. If you put up another year like this, Samuel Basallo does this in AA to AAA next year, or this year, in 24, you're looking at the number 1 prospect in 2025. Like, piece of cake. No concerns there. A couple outfielders in the system I want to talk about real quick. Enrique Bradfield, Judd Fabian, Dylan Beavers. So Fabian and Beavers were the first and second rounders in 22. Bradfield was the first rounder in 23. All 3 of them were college guys. Beaver went to Cal Berkeley. Fabian went to Florida. Bradfield went to Vandy. And they all do different stuff. And it's going to be a question of how do they fit into the major league roster and how does Baltimore make them better? So for Beavers, 119 games ending in AA last year. 288, 383, 467. 11 homers, 50 extra base hits, 70 walks to 116 strikeouts, 27 and 37 on stolen bases. Speeds plus, arms plus. I think he's going to be a corner outfielder. He played mostly right. Nice distribution, 69 games in right, 28 in center, 8 in left, 14 at DH. But doesn't chase a ton. Power looks to be above average, and his contact rate overall last year was 81%. So you can see it's a high floor for Dylan Beavers. It's just going to be a corner profile, and so the question becomes, how much power can he hit for in left or right field, because the power needs are higher, especially in left. For Fabian, the power's plus, and he looks like he can stick in center field. The speed and the defense are plus, the arm's above average. The question is, what's the hit tool going to do? Because your power tool is only as good as your hit tool. So 120 games for him, also ending in AA. 223, 349, 440 for Judd Fabian. 24 homers, 44 extra base hits, 81 walks to a not nice 169 strikeouts, 31 to 39 on stolen bases. Again, plus power. When you watch his at-bats, it felt like he struggled with high fastballs. He struggled with spin off the plate. It's something where he struggled a little bit more than you would expect for a major college, like an SEC guy coming into professional baseball. But I trust this organization to be able to fix guys like this, and so you still got time to figure this out. Enrique Bradfield's the really interesting one, right? 25 games after the draft, all the way up to high A. 291, 473 on base, 329 slugging. No homers, but 3 doubles. Weirdly, no triples. 26 walks to 16 strikeouts, 25 of 27 on stolen bases. Enrique Bradfield legitimately has 2 80 grade tools. His speed is 80 grade, his defense is 80 grade. He was the best defender, best center fielder in college baseball last year. He's on the short list of best center fielders in the minors right now. It's like him, Pete Crow Armstrong, a couple other guys, Victor Scott is on that list as well. And the thing here is he is incredibly hard to beat in the zone contact over 95%. Doesn't chase a ton. He doesn't have a lot of power, so that's the trade-off there. But it's a very much that old school leadoff style, right? A guy who can, top of the lineup, can draw walks, can get base hits, can steal lots of bags, and then play a very good center field. So depending on what happens with Cedric Mullins from a contract standpoint, Enrique Bradfield looks like he could be your center fielder of the future in 26, I would assume. And curious to see where everybody shakes out, because we've talked about 5 different outfielders and Connor Norby who can play outfield in this show. Where does everybody play? Big question there. A couple draft picks to watch from last year's draft. Second rounder Mac Horvath, second rounder Jackson Baumeister. So Horvath, infielder and outfielder. He played some third, he played some second. He's going to play some outfield as well. Plus speed, plus arm. Looks like he can be an asset at any of those positions. Offensively, power seems to be pretty good. Chase isn't bad, but he's got some contact questions. So what can they do with the hit tool in 2024? Jackson Baumeister is a really interesting one out of Florida State. Converted from catcher to the mound. Upper 90s on the fastball, right? Curveball's a downer curveball, like a hammer. Question's going to be, what's the ceiling of the slider and the changeup? And I feel like this Baltimore player development group is going to be able to help the slider. I'm really curious to see what happens, but a lot of tools, pretty raw to pitching, so a lot of development left to do, which you don't normally get from these college guys, minus guys from the University of Florida, because Florida can't develop pitching. And so, curious to see what he does in Baltimore's system next year. And then your dart throw guy. We'll try to always have one of these. 5th rounder in 2022, Trace Bright. 26 games between high A and double A. 3-6 with a 3.97 ERA in just under 100 innings. 147 strikeouts, so like 13.3 per 9. 256 walks, 5.1 per 9. Fastballs, low to mid-90s. Throws a curveball in the mid-70s. He's got a gyro slider. He's got a changeup with some good arm side run. A lot of different directions, a lot of different velocity bands. The thing for Trace Bright is he's a very cerebral pitcher, and he's a very kind of emotional pitcher, right? When you go and you watch some of these outings are incredibly dominant. He started the year in high A last year. His first 2 outings against Wilmington and Hudson Valley, combined 8 innings, 1 earned run, 18 strikeouts to 2 walks. When he is on, he is absolutely dominant. But when you have an outing where he is not on, it can spiral in a hurry. Against Jersey, 3 1/3 innings, 6 runs on 5 hits. And so you're in this scenario where the sequencing is something he has to work on still. He'll tend to gravitate towards certain pitches and overthrow those, right? You've got to work on the locations, and then it's all coming back to mentally. He has to be good at shrugging off a bad pitch, a bad at bat, and getting back into the groove of the game, having that short memory. But watch for Trace Bright, because he's a dude. He got to Double-A last year, and he gave up four runs total in 17 innings with 20 strikeouts. So he's a dude. It's just, you've got to see the whole thing click, and I think he's that close to doing it. We don't always have a chance to get to everybody. If there's a guy you want to hear about in the system, it's full of prospects. Let me know for Monday's mailbag. I'm on Twitter at Crosby Baseball. Show's on Twitter at Locked On Farm. In the meantime, enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow, and remember, it's always a great time to pay a minor leaguer.